Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm Joe James, financial educator with Tinker Federal Credit Union. And today we are going to start off our new year with talking about money smart resolutions. So, when we talk about money smart resolutions, what we're trying to do essentially is to get ourselves to the point where we have more control over our finances, where we are more organized, where we essentially know that everything is working towards one goal rather than everything working in its own direction, doing its own thing. I think ultimately when people set resolutions, it's because they realize there's essentially a deficiency of some kind in a particular area of their life, and we find these, kind of these benchmark times where this is a good starting point. And so January 1st, right? But the reality is there's never a bad time to start doing things better, right? um if I wanted to start going to the gym, I'm not going to wait until January. I may not even need to wait until Monday, even though it's Monday today when I'm recording this. And maybe I just start ASAP, right? So the thing is with money smart resolutions, we're going to talk about all the different ways you can work to achieve these goals, but it's not something that has to necessarily be a New Year's resolution. It's not something that has to be, any benchmark day or special day. It's just a matter of let's start making some better decisions financially. So essentially, the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to know your starting point. And I'm going to use this example. If you opened up any app on your phone that dealt with GPS or directions, and you typically open that because you want to know either A, how do I get somewhere I want to go? Or B, maybe I know how to get there already, but I want to make sure there's nothing that's going to keep me from getting there efficiently, right? So I still use my apps, my GPS apps, to go anywhere that I go on a daily or weekly basis, simply because I want to make sure there's not some crazy car accident or construction or something that's going to add another 30 minutes to my life, right? Of just sitting in the car. So I use my apps on a regular basis because, again, it's not that I don't know where I'm going. I want to make sure I'm getting there efficiently. But maybe I need to go somewhere I've never been before. You better believe I'm going to open that thing up and put in the address. But regardless of why I use it, what's the first thing that it always tells me? It's where I'm starting. It's where I'm at, right? Because here's the thing. If I tell it where I want to go, but I don't know where I am to start, it kind of it kind of defeats the purpose of getting somewhere efficiently, because I don't even know where I am now, right? I remember the other day, my GPS went haywire and it showed me driving over Lake Michigan. Never been there, but that's where my car thought I was. And so, or at least my GPS thought I was. And that was weird because I've never been there. But the thing is, sometimes technology does that. And so again, if I were to say I want to go to MCO, right? I want to go to the corporate office, and um I live near Norman, right? I need to go north. But if my GPS thinks I'm on Lake Michigan, it's going to tell me I need to go south. So knowing where I'm starting is really important, right? No matter where I want to go, knowing where I am is really important. And so it's not only important to know where you are so that you get the right directions to where you want to go, but it's also important because then you know that you can properly track your progress and know that you're making progress towards your goals, right? Because one of the things that keeps us engaged in working towards our goals is seeing progress being made, right? Whether that be weight loss, whether that be saving money, whether that be building a house, right? If you're building a house in this market, It's the thing about seeing the progress that gets you excited and keeps you going and keeps you committed to the process, right? So here are 5 things that we think you should measure so that you can begin to better manage, um, and ultimately help you know and help you see that you are reaching towards your financial goals. Number one is your net worth. And we'll go into detail on each one of these, but just a quick overview. Net worth essentially is what you own minus what you owe. So your house minus your mortgage, your car, the value of your car minus your car loan, that kind of thing. Your unsecured debt, that would be anything that does not have collateral assigned to it. So a credit card, a student loan, right? And a student loan because you can't give your diploma back, and then you're not surrendering your equity for the student loan to be taken away. Doesn't work that way. But student loans, medical debt, anything that does not have a tangible asset assigned to the collateral of the debt, that's unsecured, and that's usually accompanies higher rates, which also means higher payments. Number 3 is our emergency savings. Why would this be important? Because for a lot of people, if you don't have emergency savings and an emergency comes up, then you essentially resort to borrowing money to get through the emergency. Well, borrowing money for an emergency isn't going to have any assets assigned to it, right? Any equity, any collateral. So therefore, it's going to be unsecured, which again means higher interest and higher payments. And so we're not using our money efficiently. The fourth one is 401k contributions. Now, this doesn't have to be 401k. This could be 403b. This could be 457s. This could be IRAs. This could be anything that really attributes to retirement purposes, because we all want to eventually put our toes in the sand, kick our feet up, and just relax and not have to worry about getting up and going to work. And so we want to make sure that if that is a major goal for us, then we are contributing towards that, and we want to see that growth there as well. And then the last one is our credit score. Now, why is credit score important? I know there's gurus out there that say you don't need credit. You're right. If I don't have a credit score, I'm not going to just fall over dead. It's not, this isn't the Matrix, and my credit score is not what's keeping me alive. Credit score really could equate to your financial reputation. And really what that means is that you will often have better opportunities afforded to you if you have a better credit score or financial reputation. Things will be cheaper. I'm not advocating that a person be in debt their whole life, because you can maintain a good credit score without carrying a lot of debt. So anyway, we'll talk about these in further detail. So let's get into it. So number one, managing net worth. Net worth is simply what you own minus what you owe. So if you have we can see some of the correlating lines here on what you own. You'll have a home or you'll have real estate. You'll typically have mortgages attached to them. Typically, not always. You have your automobiles, your RVs, your motorcycles, your boats. Those are going to have auto loans. You might have jewelry that might associate to a credit card, or other assets. Maybe you put something on a credit card, right? Student loans, medical debt, all that's what you owe, right? What you own, that could be the liquid savings, that could be any investment accounts you have, stocks and bonds, IRAs, 401ks, really anything that you own of value, right? Would go into your asset column, which is column A, what you own, and then anything that's essentially a liability. So money that you owe somebody, or money that, you know, even if it's, like I said, not collaterally based, so your student loan. If you owe money to somebody, that is a liability, and that's going to go in column B. So you subtract those two, B from A, and you get your net worth. And that is essentially a good place to know, because here's the thing. A lot of times when people, why would someone want to know their net worth? Well, if you are wanting to retire at a certain age, a lot of people, when you ask them, when do you want to retire, they give you an age. Well, how do you know you can retire at that age? What does it boil down to? Well, if you have the money to retire at that age, then you can retire, right? If you say, I want to retire at 65, and when you're 65, you've got $50,000 in your IRA, right? Or your 401k. You're not going to last very long unless you have the most minimalistic lifestyle that the world has ever seen, right? You live in the woods, you eat only what you find or grow, right? I mean, minimalistic lifestyle, but so that the thing is net worth essentially helps us calculate, are we going to be able to accomplish our goals of maybe retiring when we want to, or being able to travel like we want to, or whatever the situation may be. So that is why net worth is an important number to understand and to manage. So how do we measure unsecured debt, right? So here's the thing: know what you owe and get a handle on it, because imagine this. If you didn't have to pay this money out, right? It's one thing to pay for a house, right? Because if, let's say you pay, you're paying 3% for your home, right? On your mortgage. But if the value of your home grows 3% every year, yeah, you're paying all that money, but you also are getting equity back for it. And the value of the home is increasing. It provides value because you have a place to live. Or the same thing with your car. Yeah, you won't drive it forever. The value may decrease, unlike the home, but essentially it gets you where you need to go. Maybe it allows you to earn money by working. So it's acceptable debt because it provides value. Now, ideally, you wouldn't have a car payment, right? But ultimately, it's acceptable because it does provide value. The same thing with some student loans. I'm not advocating all student loans provide value and you should take student loans, but some student loans are justifiable because maybe you become an engineer, you become a doctor, a lawyer, and so you're earning $250,000 a year and you're paying off that loan. Great, that's perfect. But if you got your degree in underwater basket weaving and you're working fast food, that's probably not a fair trade that you have $100,000 student loan because you wanted the experience of college living, right? So you have to consider good debt versus bad debt, and bad debt would be unsecured, high interest, high payment, lost earnings through being able to invest rather than owing people money. You got to look at it that way. So look at all these credit cards here. That we have a limit, but we have a balance, right? The limit's one thing, but it's really what is the balance that we owe, and what's the rate that we pay on? And those rates are pretty low. I mean, those are most people carry 24-25% rates on their cards, and the minimum payments are usually 1 to 2% of the balance, and so those minimum payments, it seems like not a big deal that you could buy this TV for $40 a month. Well, yeah, but you're going to pay on it for 20 years, right? So at the end of the day, you really want to have a handle on this, because look at that. Even with just these 3 cards, $200 a month. What could $200 a month do for you outside of paying off this debt? I mean, really, what could $200 a month do, right? Could you take a nice trip every year? Could you have a nicer car? Maybe you drive a hoopty. I don't even know if that's a word still used, but I drove a hoopty back in the day, and it's okay. Look who, it made me into the man I am today, so there's nothing wrong with it. But what if you had that $200 to put towards a new car, or to save towards an earlier retirement, or whatever the situation? But notice that in all these, we're paying large amounts of interest, and we're just throwing our money away over things that don't provide continued value, right? Imagine on that Capital One card is a pizza that you got 4 years ago. Probably still not nourishing your body, but your bank account is still nourishing Capital One because you bought pizza with your card and didn't pay it off. The true cost of debt. So here's an example. Let's say we have a $2,000 balance and our APR is 19.8. Again, that's pretty good. You make only the minimum payments because, again, most people, when they think, can I fit this into my cash flow budget? That's what the criteria is for a lot of people to make a purchase with the credit card. Can I fit this into my cash flow? Can I afford it? I think that's a misnomer there. Can I afford it? Well, is there a better way to do it? Might be a better question. But ultimately, can I afford it? And so we look at the minimum payment. It's only $80, right? Yeah, I can afford $80. I need this thing of 2,000, but I don't have 2,000, but I have 80, so I can pay 80. Making only the minimum payment, which is based on the balance, is going to take 8.5 years, right? Because every time you make an $80 payment, after a while, it's going to go down to 79. And guess what? You're probably going to make a $79 payment, right? Take 8.5 years, it'll cost you over $3,000. My goodness, it's going to cost you over $3,000 for a $2,000 purchase. And so really, can you afford it? That's the question. What could you do with that, right? You could be earning that 4%, or excuse me, that 19.8. Not every year. I'm not saying that's a thing. Don't call us up and be like, I want to earn that. I'm just saying you could earn money versus paying that, right? So notice at the bottom, time and cost are too great. Make it a goal to pay down credit card debt, because debt really, the thing about debt is there's acceptable debt because the value increases over time, or it allows you to increase value in another way. But the real thing is the money you're losing by being you can't really grow your money when you're having a lot of debt that you have to pay off. You can't grow it like you really want to, right? Just something to think about. So here's emergency savings we talked about. Why would anyone need emergency savings? Well, because emergencies happen. I don't know about you, but they happen to me. And if it wasn't for emergency savings, then probably would be in a bad way, because if remember that other example was $2,000, right? What if something happened and we didn't have the the savings to meet a $2,000, $2,000 expense, or maybe we lost a source of income because somebody became disabled and we didn't have insurance to cover that, or whatever the situation. But my point is this $2,000, it could be just essential living expenses we needed to cover for a month, but we didn't have it. And so really our $2,000 essential living expenses really was, $3,000 or whatever that number was. So if you can imagine, if you need 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses because of an emergency, and then something happens where you have to dip into that, but you don't have one, it could, a three month emergency could cost you 10 grand, right? And that's crazy. So instead of 6, as you can see there, but you can see you have your rent, you have your place to live, and you have the money that you need to heat it up, cool it off, run water, stay connected to the world around you, your car payment, your insurances, groceries, gas. Now you might say, why? What about my insurance? Insurance. Yes, insurance is essential. Why is that? Okay, good question. Because insurance prevents us from sustaining, a pretty substantial financial setback, right? It's one thing that we're facing an emergency already. It's another if we would have to just essentially completely be zeroed out in every way because we didn't have insurance, right? I mean, you wouldn't stop paying your car insurance because you lost your job, because you need to go look for another job. Because insurance is one of those things, you have it, you may not need it, but as soon as you don't have it, you're going to need it. And then the cost of not having it is so much more, right? And I'm not talking just home and auto. I'm talking life, disability, health, all of it. All of those insurances prevent you from substantial economic setback by protecting you from financial loss. So I would personally, insurance is always going to be an essential expense in my household because it prevents us from having substantial financial setbacks if something terrible does happen. So the question is, how much do you currently have saved in your emergency account? Statistically, most adults can't meet like a $300 to $400 emergency, and that's not a good statistic. So if you don't have any, start somewhere. Get 1,000. Get 2. Do something. Get 1 month of essential living expense, and just leave it in a liquid account, meaning I can go to the branch and get it that day, like a liquid account. I don't have to sell anything to get it. I just go and I get it that day, right? Liquid account, and leave it alone. That's all you do, is just leave it alone. You don't want it to grow. That's the purpose of is not growth. The purpose is not anything other than to be there in case I need it, right? It's kind of like the fire extinguisher in the wall. Why is it there? In case of an emergency. It's not there for any other reason. It's not there to hype up the football team when they run out of the tunnel. It's not there to, I went to the daddy-daughter dance this past weekend, and they had a guy shooting that stuff over the crowd, and it looked cool for a minute, but the crowd was too big, and it kind of just, it was silly. But anyway, the point is that's not why it's there. It's there for emergencies. So leave it alone until an emergency arises. Measuring retirement plan contributions. This is a big one. How much are you currently contributing to your retirement plan? Well, I'm not. Okay, well then don't be mad when you can't retire when you want to. But the thing is, are you contributing at least up to the maximum point that your employer matches funds? Many employers match 25 to 100% on the dollar for up to 5% of your salary. And if you're not participating fully, you're leaving money on the table. And that's true. You know, a lot of employers do match dollar for dollar up to a certain amount. I think sometimes people will go up to 6, and some companies will match you up. You know, my wife used to work for a company, they match you dollar for dollar up to 10, because that guy really wanted to encourage, the guy that owned the company, he wasn't publicly traded, the guy that owned the company, he really wanted people to save for the future, because he came from poverty, he grew up very humbly, and he bought a duplex, rented out the other side, paid it off, and he literally he owns a large portfolio of college apartment complexes on college campuses around the country, and he owns a really nice condo. No, not a condo, like a building in Florida with a penthouse, and he even rents corners of it to the Coast Guard so they can watch. They mount cameras and stuff to watch the coast. It's crazy. But anyway, he's really just wants people to do the right things and help them set up for their future. And so he matches dollar for dollar up to 10%, which is unheard of. A lot of companies will match, they'll have certain, ratios. We'll do dollar for dollar up to 3%, and then 50 cents per dollar, the next 3%. They'll have certain numbers. But the thing is are you leaving money on the table if you don't do it? Technically, yes. But is that always the best thing for everybody? No. How do you know? We'll talk to a professional, right? Talk to a professional. Is this the best thing I can do with to save for retirement? Because 401ks, 403bs, all those things, they are great for accumulating money to be able to retire. But you just have to think about the long-term effect of, taxes and things like that. So anyway, my point is, make sure that if you are not contributing, you know why you're not contributing, you have another plan, and you're intentional. That's what a lot of this boils down to, is when people have money smart resolutions, it's because for a long time with their money, they've been unintentional. They've been undisciplined, unorganized, and now they want to be all those things. So regardless of what you decide to be with your money, from here on, be intentional. So why does it help to start saving and investing today? Well, here's a perfect example. If you were to start when you're 21, right? We'll look at the fine print in a second. But if you were to start investing, notice the green line, when you're 21 years old, and you did $100 a month until you're 41 years old, right? So that's $1,200 a year for 20 years, $24,000. Okay. The total you will invest over that 20-year period is $24,000. But the total amount of money you will have when you are 67 years old, at the age of what most people is considered full retirement, you will have almost $500,000. And all you invested was $24,000, right? Now imagine if you did more than that, right? Imagine if you did 200 a month for those 20 years. Imagine if you did from 21 to 51, or 21 to 67 the whole time, right? Imagine if you did. But the point is compare that from you keep putting it off because I got a raise, I'm going to up my lifestyle. I'm going to go out to eat more often. I'm going to get a nicer car. I'm going to dress nicer. I'm going to get a bigger place to live. I'm going to do, and there's nothing, people do that. I've done that. But at the end of the day, I realize now a better thing would have been to increase my intentionality in preparing for the future. And I would have began saving more of what my increase was. Right. So if I would have, instead of putting things off and I'll save later, I would have started sooner. But if I would have, let's say I started at 47, and then because I listened to this video, I was at work and they said, hey, listen to this video. I'm like, oh, that guy's right. That's a good example. I have to start today, and I'm 47, and I do the same thing, $100 a month until I'm 67. I put in 24 grand, just like in the other example, but I only have right under 60,000. That is how compound interest works. If you don't give time anything to compound, then you kind of shot yourself in the foot, right? So you committed the 24,000, and you doubled your money at least, but you don't have much else to show for it, right? So when you get to 67 and you got 60 grand, you got some choices to make, and they're probably going to result in you have to keep working, at least part-time, because that's not much, right? So look at the fine print. This is assuming 8% annual return, compounded monthly. The results are hypothetical and don't represent a performance of actual investment. They don't take into account fees, expenses, or taxes. So don't call up the advisors or whoever and be like, Joe said, nope, this is just a hypothetical situation of how compound interest works and why it doesn't pay to wait. Check your credit report and score because, again, it's really more about your financial reputation. Number one, you also want to make sure you don't get your identity stolen, and this is a great way to do that, to make sure your identity has not been compromised. It's to check. You can do one of two ways. A lot of people will check their report every 4 months, like one of the three every 4 months, just to check them throughout the year. And other people, if you're going to make a large purchase soon, like a home or a car, and you want to make sure your finances are in order to make that purchase, you'll check all three at the same time and make sure they're all correct. Because when you fill out the application and your credit file is pulled, you want to make sure all three are in order because two of the three will be used and you don't know which two. So pulling all three and getting all three in order is a great way to make sure that you're setting yourself up for the most amount of success you can. Now notice that all three will give you a full credit report. It'll give you it won't give you a score, but you can get your score other ways based on the information in the reports. And it's easy to compare what's in there versus what should be. And it'll show you a lot of historical things. It'll show you some things that might be problematic and might need to address. It'll show you things that used to be. It'll show you some things that may not be really good and maybe you can work on fixing them that you didn't know were there. Right? But you can go to annualcreditreport.com and get a free copy of each report once a year. So that's something you could do in the near future. Just pull your credit reports and go over them. And well, Joe, I don't understand how to read them. We'll get there. Keep watching. Your credit score is based on an algorithm by Fair Isaac Company Incorporated. It ranges from 300 to 850. High score indicates you're low risk to lenders, and the result is lower interest rates on any type of loan. Now, here's the other thing. Think about it this way. When you were in school, you had a GPA and you had a transcript. Your GPA was like a snapshot number of who you were as a student, and your transcript was more exhaustive list of information of who you were as a student. Now, if you were to tell somebody you have a group project and you're going to work with somebody who has a 3.7, you would feel comfortable working with that person for that group project. But if you were to tell somebody you're going to work with this guy, he's got a 1.3, you probably want to find a different partner. Same thing with creditors. When you have a low score, they're like, we'll do it because we're in the business, but we're going to make it worth our while. We're going to charge you a lot more because if we're going to take on the risk, we need more reward. That's how a lot of them work, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's how it works, right? So the higher your score, the lower risk you are, right? Same thing, higher GPA, it appears you're the better student, right? But the transcript is what really tells the full story, just like the credit report. So the score is a snapshot, but that doesn't mean what's in the credit report won't get reviewed and looked over. This is a sample of what your report will look like. It'll have, kind of a grid so that you can see what all the different numbers and colors and everything means. It'll show you all the different information about each account, adverse accounts, potentially adverse accounts, satisfactory accounts. And so look through it. If it has information that you're not familiar with, I didn't open this account, then maybe that's worth looking into to see if your identity has been compromised, right? Or if they have some information that's not correct, it may be worth disputing and see if you can get it corrected. But this is what it looks like. And again, if you don't understand how to look at one of these and understand what it says, keep watching. One of the really important things to do as you're working towards, really being money smart, track your expenses, right? Build a budget that works. Using figures that are accurate. It's one thing to set up the world's greatest budget. It's another thing to track your expenses and your purchases to really make sure you're actually sticking to it. Those are not the same thing, right? I could set up a diet plan that would make Dr. Oz be like, man, this is perfect. This is the perfect diet. There's never been one, but you made it. But if I don't track what I eat to make sure I'm sticking to it, then what does it matter? I created the perfect diet, right? So build a budget that works using figures that are accurate. You only know that they're accurate because you track your expenses. Many people underestimate how much they actually spend on certain things. Joe, I didn't track the time I went to the OnQ drive-through after work because, it's just a couple dollars. It's not a big deal. You're right. It's not a big deal, but you do it every day, and that adds up. And that could be the difference between retiring when you want to or traveling like you want to or that nicer car. No, you could have the nicer car, but you'd rather go to OnQ drive-through. I'm not attacking anybody. I'm just saying. So track your expenses for the month and make sure you have accurate numbers plugged into your budget. Compare them, adjust the budget as necessary moving forward. Tracking also helps you find spending leaks, right? Again, it's that whole, I didn't track that $2 I spent at OnQ because it wasn't a big deal. But then when I realized I was doing it every day on the way home from work, I did it 20 times a month. That's $40. That adds up, right? Ways to track, you can write it all down, you can keep receipts, you can use your cards and they'll automatically track your transactions. But use any of these to track your expenses and then just compare what you spent to your budget. Just look at your bank account every morning. And number one, make sure you didn't get your identity stolen, make sure your card wasn't compromised or whatever. Right? It happened to me literally like 4 days ago. My wife looked at our account and said, "What is this?" I was like, "I don't know." We look into it, some fraudulent activity. But we just go in and look every morning to see what cleared the night before. And if everything that cleared, did we mean to spend that? Is that what we plan on spending? If yes is the answer to those questions, then we move on. If not, if no, we didn't plan on spending that, then we go adjust our budget. Maybe we need to plan on it in the future. Or B, we did plan on spending it, but not that much, or we plan on more than we need, so we adjust our budget that way. But if I don't track, I'm not going to know to do those things. Here's an example of what that looks like. Every day that we just write down what it is, write small apparently, but what it is and how much it costs. And then it just helps you track how much are you spending each week. It's really not hard. We make it hard, but it's really not hard. Here's an example of a budgeting form. Notice it has everything in there: income, giving, home expenses, utilities, all that stuff. And again, this is just if you printed it out and wrote it out on paper, this is what it would look like. And you might say, well, Joe, which one should I use? A spreadsheet or print it out? And the answer is yes. Whichever one works for you that you'll stick to, that's the one you should use. One thing to be careful of is be conservative with non-guaranteed income. Sorry about these little typos here, or the spacing of the words here, but be conservative with non-guaranteed income. If overtime is not guaranteed, don't count on it. Don't work it into your budget. If bonuses are not guaranteed, don't, if you get disqualified from a bonus or a commission or any seasonal activity, maybe your company decided, we're not going to do firewood this year at Christmas time. Well, if you were counting on that, now you're in trouble, right? So don't count on non-guaranteed income, and make sure withholdings are correct. That's a really big one, because if you're having your job hold too much money out of your check, that's money every month you could be getting. You'll get it back in a tax return form, but again, that's giving the government an interest-free loan. And I'm not a fan of that, but maybe you are. But again, making sure your withholdings are correct will allow you to maximize your efficiency with the money you're getting to put in your pocket each month. So this would be your expenses. You just basically look at each category, make sure all the things listed, you are thorough, and you write down everything and be realistic, right? Well, I don't spend money every month on toiletries. Okay, well, what on average? Maybe you go splurge, every 3 months. Well, what do you spend? We'll break that down on average a month and then save a little bit each month. It's easier to do that than come up with it all at once. So evaluate your cash flow. If you have a cash flow deficit, increase your income. One of those 4 ways, right? Sell things is a one-time thing, but it could help, right? But overtime, part-time, better pay, increase your income, or decrease your spending, reduce, substitute, postpone, or even forego altogether. Nothing wrong with any of those things. Go to OnQ. I'm not telling you not to go to OnQ. Maybe just go once or twice a week. Or maybe you just buy a 24-pack of whatever drink you're getting and you just take one with you and leave it in the car every day and then put it on ice when you go home, and it'll be the same thing. And it's a lot cheaper, guaranteed. But another thing is, this is personal finance 101. Live within your means. Don't spend more than you make. It doesn't matter if you make 50 grand a year, 500 grand a year. If you spend $1 more than you make every time, you will always be broke. And stop charging. A lot of people are intentional and they charge and they pay it off every month because they use rewards. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's you, do it. But again, it's intentionality. If you're just spending and then not paying it off because it's whatever, you're going to end up in a bad way. So stop doing that. Again, we want to set smart goals, right? Money smart resolutions. So smart, what is smart? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed, right? Short term is anything within the next year. A midterm goal is anything a year to 5 years, and 5 years and longer is a long-term goal. But the two most important there are specific and timed. If you'll be specific and you'll have a time stamp on it to where there's an ending date it has to be achieved by, then you'll be good to go. Specific and timed. If you can do those two things, the others will take care of themselves usually. Here's an example goal worksheet. This is what it would look like. What are your goals? When do you need them done by? How many months is that? How much do you need? How much is that per month or per paycheck? Break all that down. It makes it a lot easier. It makes it easier to track, makes it easier to measure progress, makes it easier to stick to the plan. Because it's, you know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. This breaks the elephant down into one bite at a time. Here's an example: emergency fund, repay debt, fund retirement. Notice the target dates are within, those time frames. How many months? How much do I need total? Break that down per month, break that down per paycheck. So $1 million in 30 years is probably not as unreasonable as you think. So get started. Visualize success. What does success look like for you? What is the money smart resolution 30 years from now look like for you? Whatever that is, work backwards from there and make it work. Stay organized. That's a big one. A physical and digital space of being organized, right? To where you sit down at a certain time, a week or month, you plan your budget, you track your spending, and you're organized with it, and you measure your progress towards your goals. You're realistic. That's a really big one. If you are living a certain lifestyle while you're working and you're not really saving much towards retirement is not going to be more glamorous for you. I hate to tell you that, but that's just not how it's going to be. So be realistic, right? Be realistic. Monitor your progress. That's really important because that's what keeps us engaged and helps us stick to the plan. Expect setbacks. I don't know how many times I've seen people try to do right and get their life in order, and the universe says, no, I don't think so, and knocks them back. It's just going to happen. Don't get mad about it. It just happens. It tests your resolve. It tests to see if you're being serious or not. Because if you are, get back up and keep going, right? And just stick to the plan and reward yourself along the way. That's a big one, right? Reward yourself along the way. After you save a certain amount of money, take yourself and buy yourself something nice. Well, that doesn't seem very practical. Well, maybe not. It may seem like a waste, but at the end of the day, you will feel rewarded and want to feel that feeling again. So you'll stick to the plan and keep doing all the things you've been doing. If you want more help with this, maybe you want more information on budgeting or more information on your credit report, how to read it or anything like that, go to Balance, call the number or go to the website. Tell them I sent you. They'll give you VIP treatment. This is free for anybody. We pay for this. But Balance is a great resource. And it's anonymous. So use that. No judgment there from anybody. Great people, great to work with. And if you're a member with us and you want to maybe get more one-on-one help in person, contact our member solutions team and they will meet with you for free. They will help you set up the budget. They'll help you figure out how to improve your credit score. They'll help you understand how to read your credit report. They'll help you figure out how to get out of debt quicker. But they will meet with you at a branch or whatever the situation if they can, and they will coach you one-on-one. And they're certified financial counselors. They're great people and do great work. So call or email them and set up an appointment today. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry we went a little long, but I hope it was worth your time. Hope you found it worthwhile and meaningful. And good luck on your Money Smart resolutions. If you want any more information on this or any of our other workshops, please email us or call us, and we will be happy to talk to you and give you more information. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.